بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. So now we've reached the 12th greater sin, qazaf. So this term means to accuse a chaste man or woman of adultery or of homosexuality. So it's to accuse someone who hasn't done the crime, but they get accused of it anyway, unjustly. To make a lie up on someone, basically, say that they committed adultery. So he said the 12th greater sin is this, to make the lie up on someone who's say they committed adultery. He says it means to accuse a chaste Muslim man or chaste Muslim woman of adultery or homosexuality. He says we have on the authority of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Imam Sadiq, Imam Qadha, Imam Rida, Imam Jawad alayhi salam, that this is a greater sin. It says the Holy Quran speaks of the punishment for this sin in Surah An-Nur, ayah 23-24. Surely those who accuse chaste believing men, surely those who accuse chaste believing women, unaware of the evils, are cursed in the world and the hereafter, and they shall have a grievous chastisement on the day when their tongue and their hands and their feet shall bear witness against them for what they did. So we see here that it's a greater sin because it promises, the ayat promises the punishment in the hereafter. And, sometimes we look at something small when we maybe would accuse someone of committing zina with someone because maybe we saw them walking together, for example, and a man and a woman, and they're walking together and they say, oh, I bet he's having a relationship with that lady, or that lady is having a relationship with that guy. They're being together, having relations. Or for example, we see a guy and he's not so masculine like maybe we're used to seeing a typical man, and someone says, oh, I bet he is gay, I bet he's a homosexual. This is a serious offense in Islam, and it's a greater sin to accuse someone on suspicions. But this is something that people do. Actually, they do it as a joke, and they playing around with that, and they say, oh, this person, I bet he's gay, or I bet she's gay, or I bet this one is sleeping with that one, and that one's sleeping with this one, and gossip and all these things. But in reality, we shouldn't do these things because we have no proof. And it's just something based on intuition or guessing, or it doesn't have any basis to it. No one has seen that person having relationship with the other person, or no one has seen that person with the same gender, for example, doing something haram, but they say it. We have to make sure that we don't even say these things jokingly. He said the above verses clarify that those who falsely accuse chaste men or women of adultery are cursed by Allah as long as they are alive, and in the hereafter they will be deprived of His divine mercy. We should maintain our distance from such people on whom the wrath of Allah has descended, and be very careful not to believe their false accusations. False accusers have to be penalized in this world according to Islamic law. Once their testimony is proven to be false, they cannot testify in the Islamic court again. There's some conditions with this, and it covers it later in the chapter. We'll go over it. But it's a serious offense because these crimes have punishments for them. Let's say we're in an Islamic government or Islamic country, and we make up this accusation on this person, and they go to the authorities and say this person is committed zina, for example. That is a serious crime because they are going to investigate. They're going to take them. They're going to make their life miserable. They're going to see this, and it's going to become a scandal, and everyone's going to know about it. And it's it's a very serious thing. I mean, to spread lies about other people, those lies ruin people's lives. Imagine if a girl, has people make rumors that she is not chaste and she's been with several men, for example. They make up these rumors. And some people get jealous of other people. Maybe they're jealous of their looks or their status or their money or something, and they make up lies on those other people to make their life miserable. And they make up that lie. Imagine how this could impact her future if people believe those lies. It would be very difficult for her to get married. For example, people will look down on her. For example, and it will make their life miserable all over some false accusations. So he says that Imam Bakr alayhi salam has narrated that the organs and the body parts of the true believer shall not testify against him, but they will testify against the one who, after all, has to endure the punishment. So he's saying that our body parts will testify against us. For example, our tongue will testify that it has lied against other people. Our hand will testify that it has abused other people. Our feet will testify that we've walked or other haram actions. Our stomach maybe will testify that we have eaten haram food or drank a haram drink, for example, and these things. He says the person who accuses anyone falsely of adultery or homosexuality belongs to this category, because the punishment is the hellfire. His organs, according to the Holy Quran, will testify against him. He says, also mentioned in the same surah, Surah An-Nur, ayat 4, and those who accuse free women then do not bring 4 witnesses to flog them. The punishment for this is 80 lashes or 80 floggings. And it says, do not admit any evidence from them ever. And these that are the transgressors. He said these commands are issued in this ayat regarding the one who commits this crime of making lies against other people, that they have done adultery specifically. The first is that he has to be punished with the Islamic penalty that is given for them. And the second is that their evidence or their testimony isn't accepted. And the third is that such a person would always be considered as unreliable and a transgressor. Because how can we take someone's word who has made up lies about other people to try to get them in trouble? Someone who has said, that person have committed an act of immorality, an act of sin as serious as adultery or homosexuality, for example, these 2 sins. It says Islamic society, which is geared to promote the dignity and welfare of its members, cannot allow a false accuser to go unpunished. This falsehood dishonors the people who are upright. Muslims, they have a character, a reputation, they should be pious, and then this accusation attacks them directly at their piety. They're trying to show the community that they are not like what you think. They are this way, but really it's a lie. It's just to get people to look at them in a negative way. He said, society which cannot uphold the honor of its members cannot possibly give them peace and security. So if they were allowed to go around and make these lies about people, the society it's an evil effect on the whole of society. He says, the book Islam and World Peace mentions that in order to curb these type of propaganda, a slanderer who cannot furnish 4 witnesses is given the Islamic punishment. If 3 witnesses testify and the 4th witness is not available, then the former 3 are also punished with the same Islamic punishment. However, if a husband accuses his wife of adultery, but he cannot support his accusation with witnesses, then he does not get the Islamic punishment. The author says this is to avoid domestic problems of upheavals. He says, in the case that the husband, in this case, this husband has another option. If he does not call 4 witnesses, he's made to say 4 times, calling Allah as his witness that his wife has committed adultery. Then the fifth time he has to say that if he is lying, Allah will be on him. Something serious. If you're lying about it, you wouldn't do that unless the person doesn't fear Allah at all and doesn't actually believe in Allah, because no one would call Allah's curse on them if they actually believed in Allah. Then his wife is also given the similar right that she can say 4 times, calling Allah as her witness, that her husband is lying. And the 5th time, she has to say that if her husband is telling the truth, then the curse and wrath of Allah will be on her, and she can escape the punishment in this way. So this is their way out from this. But this is a very difficult situation. I cannot imagine a man blaming his wife like this and calling the wrath upon him, and the wife calling the wrath upon her. I mean, I'm not sure how they can even reconcile these type of things after, if the relationship is in that sort of standing. It's probably, if they cannot work this out, it's better for them to seek other means of divorce or some other thing. He said this law is derived from the 6th and 7th ayat of Surah An-Nur. The author says, whether it is true or false, it must be known that it is haram to accuse anyone of adultery or homosexuality till he sees it with his own eyes. Not them together, but as we mentioned in other chapters before, that they actually have to see the penetration of the sexual organ, he says. So they have to actually see that with their own eyes, 4 people. And this is very difficult for someone to do unless these people are doing this thing openly in the public with people walking around. And this is not the case, unless it's a very shameless society like the society of Lut, where they were doing these things in public. This is not really happening in our society. And if this is happening near us, we should definitely think about relocating from that place, because this is very bad. So they have to see the action and then witness for this thing. He said, even after being the eyewitness of this, he must not testify before a judge till the 3 other just witnesses testify. And he himself must be just. He must be reliable. He must be trustworthy. He says, as stated earlier, if the witnesses are less than 4, their testimony is not accepted. In this case, the witnesses are considered as transgressors instead of the alleged person who has done the crime, and they are penalized with the punishment of making up false accusations. So they need to have 4 just witnesses, and all these 4 just witnesses need to agree that they will go testify, because if only one of them testifies, it will be a problem for him, because the law requires 4 just witnesses. Imam Bakr alayhi salam, he has said that one who commits this crime of making the false accusations that someone has committed zina or homosexuality is removed from the ranks of the believers of Allah and considered as a transgressor. Transgressor is also the opposite of the believer. As Allah has said, is he then who is a believer like the one who is the transgressor? Surah Sajda, ayat 18. So Allah gives these on the opposites: believer, transgressor. So he says, and the ayat says, the one who does this crime, they are a transgressor. So transgressor, Imam is saying, is shown on the opposite of a believer. So this crime removes the belief from them at that point, unless they repent from this crime. Sometimes we can have faith, and sometimes some sins can remove that. While we're in the state of that sin, we are not mu'min anymore. We are a disbeliever, and we are in a state of kufr. For example, when we commit certain sins, they remove the belief from us. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "The person who accuses falsely a chaste man or a chaste woman of indecency, Allah invalidates all of his good deeds and does not give him any reward. And on the day of judgment, 70,000 angels will flog him from the front and behind and continue to do so until the order is passed for him to be put into the hellfire." So we see that this sin is not something to be taken lightly. Some people maybe think, "Oh, I just said something about so and so, not a big deal. I wasn't eating pork or drinking wine or doing this or that," which is seen like something big in their eyes. But actually, this sin is a very strong punishment for this sin. It reminds me of some people have a wrong idea. They think like some sins are stuck for the law, never do this thing. And for example, if someone is drinking alcohol at their table and they drink openly, and then someone brings the pork to their table and they go, "Stuck for the law, I never eat this pork, I only eat halal food." But you're drinking alcohol and you're saying stuck for the law about the other thing. You look at the eating pork as something that is, God forbid, I would never do, but at the same time, they're doing so many other sins. They're drinking alcohol with their girlfriend, for example, but they will not eat the pork. So they're looking at one as something, all of these are greater sins, whether they do one sin or the other sin, whether they're drinking alcohol or they're, accusing someone falsely, or all these other sins that we have mentioned. They're all in the category of greater sins, which all carry in the afterlife. They have severe punishment. So we should look at all of them in this way. He says the next part of this chapter is the penalty for this sin. He says, and those, he mentions the ayat again, those who accuse free women and do not bring 4 witnesses to flog them 80 times and do not admit evidence from them ever. The author says from this above verse, numerous traditions and rules of the mujtahideen or the scholars indicate that every one of those people who does a false accusation of sodomy or zina, they should be flogged 80 times, provided 4 just witnesses are not available. But he said there are shurut or conditions for these things to be enacted. He said the sinner must be the one who has committed this crime. They need to be baligh. They need to be. They should not be a minor. Also, they need to have aql. They shouldn't be majnoon, for example. They need to have their sound mind. He says a minor child or an insane person cannot be punished for false accusations because the minor doesn't know what they are doing. The same as the insane person is not in their right mind. They don't know what. He says also the one who is an adult and the sane person should have made the allegation after careful consideration and not under compulsion. No one should force their hand to go and testify. No one should have stood over them and demanded and put them in the position that they must go testify if they fear that they will get some repercussion from someone else if they don't. They need to do it on their own free will. It says no penalty can be imposed on the accuser, the one who has done the false accusation, if he has made a genuine mistake or if he has made this accusation in jest. He is joking. They find out that he is joking. It's a bad joke. And it's haram to do these type of things, but the penalty of this crime does not come on him. One who has been accused of adultery or sodomy must possess 5 characteristics. First of all, the one who is accused of the crime, he has to be an adult. He shouldn't be a minor. He needs to be baligh. Second, he must be have akal, or have his right mind. Third, he must be free man. Fourthly, he must be a Muslim and not a disbeliever or kafir. Lastly, he must apparently be chaste. He must have a reputation for being a chaste person. He said a person who strongly objects to being blamed of adultery and fornication, or is shocked by such an accusation, is taken to be a chaste person. So if the accused does not fulfill the conditions or is notorious for being corrupt and indecent, the accuser is not penalized for this crime. So if someone accuses someone falsely of committing fornication, adultery, for example, and they say, the person that he is accused is a good mu'min, a good believer, someone who's known for being righteous, and there's no, facade or corruption associated with them. This is one thing. Then he would be liable for the punishment because he's accusing someone who is known to be a good Muslim of this crime falsely. So the person who is an open faucet, for example, he's open rebellious, he's known for doing haram and all of these things, and he's known for committing these type of crimes, and he is shameless and has no care whatsoever about deen or anything. He's not pious at all. If someone accused that person of committing zina and he didn't have his 4 witnesses because of the reputation of the person is openly committing haram, the punishment is to the one who falsely accused in that situation. It says the accusation should clearly mention the crime. It should clearly mention zina, for example, adultery, fornication, or sodomy. As we mentioned before, this is the crime with against a young boy, or either homosexuality. He says if an accuser is vague in his allegations and he merely hints at the zina or sodomy, or addresses the accused as an adulterer or a sodomist, for example, then he can be exempted from the punishment. If he doesn't, he just calls them by that name, but he doesn't specifically say that they have done that crime and he has witnessed it and these things. But if he calls this person these type of names, he's insinuating that they have done this type of crime, and the person who is a crime has a right to demand action against the accuser. Go in front of the Hakam al-Shari or the Qadi, like the judge, Islamic judge, and demand, that this person has slandered me and called me this, and the punishment is something less than this crime, but it is in the hand of the Hakam al-Shari or the Islamic judge. We're talking about all of these things, and this is theory because these things are not really implemented in our society, and also ghaiba, the occultation of imam, these punishments are not carried out. This is one of the opinions, probably the more prominent opinion. Sometimes the allegation, he says, is against someone other than the one who is addressed. For example, how can that be? He's accusing someone else. He says, as an example, he says, your father was an adulterer. Your father was a homosexual or a sodomist. In such situation, he's not saying the crime is committed by that person he's addressing, but the crime is against the father. He's saying that the father committed the crime. The one who, so in this situation, it's in the hand of the father to demand the punishment. And of the one, he says, of the one who is addressed to insist upon penalty. The one who addressed is not them directly, It's the father of that person who might not be present in that situation. He says, consequently, he said the son is not directly accused, but the son is insulted, and he's insulted during this process because, someone calls them, there's many terms people call. They say, oh, ibn zina, for example, haramzadeh, or it depends on language. Every language has this sort of curse that they people. English, maybe they call them a bastard or something like this. So all of these, they are saying that the crime has been committed, but is by the parent, it's not by the one who's dressed, but the people use it as an insult. So that person is insulted in the process. And he says, consequently, he cannot demand the sentence of qazaf against the accuser, but must insist upon a lighter penalty, like reprimanding them so that the sin is not repeated. So in this case, for example, someone calls another person. They say, "Oh, you are Ibn Zina." So they're saying that your father or your mother, for example, this person's father or mother committed zina, and they were the outcome of that. It's an insult to them. But the father or the mother, whoever is addressed in this situation, they are the one who come for the penalty of this. But if they are not there and they don't know about it and they don't claim it, or either they have passed away and they're not there, they cannot claim the punishment for this against the one who has accused them with the false accusation. But the son is insulted, or the daughter, whoever is in this situation, they are insulted by this. So there still needs to be something that's done, because they shouldn't be doing this. And the author is saying that you can take this insult that they have done to you and bring it to a shari, the Islamic judge, and tell them, this person has insulted me, they have insulted my parents, and I want something done about this. And it's in the hands of the Hakam al-Shari to issue some sort of punishment for this, which will be lighter than the prescribed punishment. Because we have hudud, prescribed punishment for crimes that are set, they are there. And the punishment is specifically listed, and that is the punishment for that crime. And then some crimes, we do not have a specific punishment for those, and it falls in the hand of Hakam al-Shari, the Islamic judge. They can give ta'zirat, for example, is some flogging, for example. And they say, oh, for this crime, you get 10 of flogging, for example, and such penalty. It is in their hand to do these type of things. He says the next part is expiation of the sin on the day of judgment. This is a story. He says a woman presented herself before Rasulullah. She said, Ya Rasulullah, I called my maid an adulteress. Prophet said, have you seen her committing? She said, no. Holy Prophet told her, no. He said, know that on the day of Qiyamah, day of resurrection, some of your good deeds that you have done, they will be transferred to this maid of yours, and it will be the expiation of this. So maybe we insulted someone, and when we insult them on day of resurrection, we are giving them our good deeds. So we have to think about this, especially when we are in the traffic, we're driving, and I see people. I used to do a lot of driving for when I had a other job, and I used to see people get so mad in the traffic, and they yell at each other, curse at each other, want to fight each other, and these call people all sort of names, or dispute between husband and wife, calling each other names, all of these things. When we insult someone, we are giving them our good deeds. These we worked hard for example, and we put effort into do these good deeds. Maybe you put your hard-earned money into sponsoring a majlis for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and you have bought food, and you have prepared, and you have worked, and you did this good deed, and you got the reward for this action is pending for you on day of judgment. And then you get in an argument with someone and you call them a name, like this person called them an adulteress, call someone a bastard, for example, and then you're giving them your good deeds. So we have to think about this type of thing when we get angry. We have to have sabr and be patient with these people. So after the Prophet told her this, the woman returned and handed a whip to her maid. She went back to her maid. She felt bad. She said, I have cursed this lady. I have insulted this lady. But the maid refused to do it. So she freed this lady. She was a slave, a maid. She freed her, said, your service is no longer needed. You are a free woman. Then again, she went back to Rasulullah and she told him about the incident that happened. And the Prophet said, maybe this action of yours will act as an expiation of your utterance, this thing that you said to her, and you may not suffer its consequences in the hereafter. So the Prophet said, you have tried to rectify this thing, you have did tawbah, and you have freed this woman. So maybe this action has expiated the sins from you. I remember some ayat, I cannot recall exactly where, but paraphrasing is someone has done a sin, they should follow up the sin, they should do a good action. So we see this lady that she has done this sin, she's followed up with a good action, and inshallah it will be expiation for this lady. The next part is talking about tawbah for the sin. It said the one who accuses a Muslim of adultery or sodomy should know that this false accusation is a sin that trespasses upon the rights of man, haqqan nas, and it is as well as the right of Allah. As far as the human rights are concerned, the one who is falsely accused can take the accuser to the judge. If the false accusation is proved by the confession of the accuser or by the testimony of the just witnesses who testify having heard the accuser make this false accusation, the legal sentence is executed. It is, he said, it is wajib for the person who has committed this crime of false accusation to submit himself to the accused for the trial. However, he can request the one he falsely accused to forgive him, and he has to try his best to do that. He should ask for forgiveness from that person he has sinned against. Haqqan nas, he has wronged someone else, so that person needs to forgive him. We have mentioned this before in Aqaid, haqqallah, haqqan nas. So things between us and Allah, things between us and people. We cannot steal someone's car with haqqan nas, rights between people. We have stolen their car, and then we go, Ya Allah, astaghfirullah, Rabbi wa atubu alayh. I seek forgiveness for this sin that I have stolen this car, and continue on and still driving this car of this person. And we think that Allah is going to forgive us, but it is between us and that person. That person needs to forgive us. Ask that person to see. We need to ask forgiveness for them, from them, for take property and wronging them. And we also need to give that property back to them, and they need to forgive us. Same in this situation. We have accused someone falsely. We need to ask them for forgiveness. I have done this. I didn't mean it. It was out of anger or out of jealousy or something else, and I shouldn't have said, and I ask for your forgiveness. And then that person, they should forgive them, inshallah. So he says, if he is condoned, he escapes punishment. So if this person forgives them, he does not get the punishment of this false accusation. But if he is not forgiven, or nor is the sentence carried out, and the falsely accused dies, the right of having that penalty executed is transferred to the legal heirs of the falsely accused. Now it is wajib upon the one of this sin either to surrender himself to the heirs so that he can go to the judge, or he could ask for their forgiveness. So, for example, the one accused, he's saying, he has been accused that he has done zina, and the one who has accused him has the punishment yet. Who got accused of a zina, he dies. His penalty still is on this person. He is not off the hook. The heirs of the deceased who was accused of zina falsely, the heirs of them, they can come and claim the punishment against that person who falsely accused the deceased. But he can also ask forgiveness from those heirs of the deceased, and they can forgive him, and then he will be saved that punishment. One of the companions says that I asked Imam Sadiq alayhi salam regarding the person who commits false accusation but is forgiven by the one who is falsely. If later this person regrets having forgiven and he wishes that the accuser is punished, can they execute the punishment now? So someone committed the crime. They said, this person has done zina. Then they ask forgiveness. The person says, okay, I forgive you for saying those things about me. Then later on, they start thinking about it and said, you know what? They shouldn't have said that about me. Now all the people are talking about me. I should go punish that person and execute the punishment that Allah has prescribed for them. The Imam asked them, can you do this? The person asked the Imam, can you do this? Imam said, no penalty can be imposed on him after having been forgiven for that. So if he forgave him, he cannot come back later and say that, oh, I want to punish him for this crime. He is forgiven. Then he asked further, he says, what if a person says, oh, son of a fornicator? Like it says, for example, he calls someone Ibn Zina or Haram Zadeh, these type of names. And the one who is falsely accused forgives him, but he leaves the matter to Allah. Imam says, if his mother is alive, the son doesn't have the right to forgive the accuser because he wasn't the one accused. He said, Ibn Zina. He said that you are the son of the one who did zina, the one who did adultery. So how can the son forgive this person? He wasn't accused. The mother was accused. He said, if the mother is alive, the son has no right to forgive this person. Maybe he forgives him for being insulted, but the mother has to forgive. And the mother he says, Imam says his mother has the right to forgive, and she can exercise her right whenever she wants. If the mother has died, only then does the son have the right to forgive. So a lot of times, if someone gets angry and they accuse someone else and they disrespect their parents by accusing them of adultery with this type of insult, it makes it very complicated for them because the one that they have insulted isn't even the one they have accused. They have just insulted us. So now they need to go to the parents of that person. Imagine how humiliating that would be to have to go to someone's parents and say, I have accused you of adultery by insulting your son and calling him these names. Do you forgive me? Imagine the shame that would bring to such a person. So these things have to be kept in mind when we are angry with someone, and not to take things too far. We need to know how to work on our anger, diffuse the situation, and these type of things. So the author says it is wajib upon the accuser that after he has received the penalty or after he has been forgiven by the one he has falsely accused, that he must publicly announce that whatever he has said is false. For example, he should say, I accuse this person of zina. It was a false accusation. He needs to go publicly and say this. And his announcement should be so much that those who have heard the false accusation hear his confession too. Because a lot of times in this situation, imagine he's in a gathering of people He said, so and so is a homosexual. So and so is a such and such girl is um, a person who has committed adultery. Those people, they leave. They take this news and they spread it around also. They also commit this sin, or they keep it to themselves. Who knows? But those people have dispersed. He needs to go tell those people, and the place that he has done this to, anyone who would have heard this thing from him, he needs to publicly tell them, you know, that thing I said about such and such, it's not true. It's not good that I said that, and I shouldn't have said it, and it is a false accusation. To clear the name of that person, because they have publicly defamed them, and defaming someone is something that's hard to come back from. You know, I remember watching some news reporter interviewing Mike Tyson, and he was accused of rape. And everyone called Mike Tyson a rapist, and this stigma got on him as a rapist. But later, it was proven that he didn't do this crime, and he was saying it doesn't. Now it's as if it doesn't matter. I'm glad my name is clear, but it doesn't. It's as if I've still done it, because everyone knows me as a rapist, because they have accused this, they have put me in jail. I did time for this crime, and then later exonerated or these type of things. But the name is still attached to him, even though they have cleared him of that name. Or someone who has been convicted as a murderer, and then 20, 30 years later, they have been exonerated through DNA or some type of thing, and they have released them from prison. We see this happen all the time in the news. Someone served 30 years in jail, and now they are free, and they didn't commit the crime. But how many people have known him or her as a murderer? And then for the rest of their life, they say, "Oh, that's the one who did that murder," but he got released. You know, everyone was thinking, and that name is on them. So we have to be extremely careful about accusing other people of other things. And really, if we take a look at our own life and our own faults and our own struggles and other things that we are doing, we will be so busy with ourselves, we will not think about anybody else. But a lot of people like to point out the faults of everyone, and they don't look at their own faults at all. So we should take time and take account of our own self, and think about what we have done and how Allah has hidden those bad things that we have done and not expose those things to the public. But at the same time, we are exposing other people's sins to the public. And we should be afraid that Allah would expose our shortcomings and our faults and our flaws to the public in the same way that if we are falsely accusing, that we are doing in that moment. So these type of things, we think about them, it will refrain us from this type of sin. So we have run out of time, and inshallah next week we'll finish this chapter, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
اللهم
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. No question. Then we take a break for 5 minutes, inshallah.
Inshallah. Let's take 5 minutes.